Hey, so this week on the NixMyth Podcast, we are talking all about apathy. I don't care. But you should care, and you should watch this episode because it's going to be really good, and just because you love the podcast, that's why you should watch it. Be blessed.
Hey, we are your hosts, Nick Smith.
And Kylie Jo Smith, and welcome to the show.
There we go. Before we get into anything else, Inner Circle, what's happening, y'all?
Hey.
Hello.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
We have some changes coming to the studio soon that you're going to, I don't know if you'll see them. You'll probably hear them.
Yes, we will.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Not sure what that means, but I'm going with it. I'm going 100% with it.
So
yeah, that's happening. So today we are talking
about apathy.
Apathy.
And I know most of you don't even care.
That reminds me of a dad joke. You ready?
Uh-oh.
What's the difference between ignorance and apathy?
I don't know, and I don't care.
It's so good. Hold on. Let me. And because it was that good, had to applaud it. Okay. Had to get that in there.
So we're talking about apathy. We're talking about something that you may not realize that you've suffered from this, or maybe you are aware of it, but you don't really know where it came from, and you don't really understand how to get out of it. I think everyone has felt at some point about some subject. Like, I don't really even care. I don't care how it turns out. I mean, think about recent political situations where people have gotten to a certain point where it's like, you know what? I don't care. And with Christians, the way this comes out is it doesn't always come out with an I don't care.
Okay.
It comes out with, now get ready. I'm about to offend some people.
I'm ready to be offended.
You know what? God is on the throne. And so, I'm just going to let it be.
Well, you know what though? I've heard that not only in the case of apathy, but I've heard that as a kind of a blanket shield when I don't agree with what you're saying, and I'm about to say something to make you upset, but I don't want to say it. So I'm just going to say, you know what?
That's intense. That's complex. I've never thought about that.
Oh, I've experienced it so many times.
I've probably experienced it, but I've never actually thought about that's what it was.
Because you're like in the middle of a conversation and somebody like clearly doesn't agree with you with whatever you're saying. And they're like, but I'm just happy God's on the throne and that's all that matters. Did you just, Jesus juke me? Did you just hit me with the kibosh?
Did you just basically tell me that what I said doesn't matter to you at all? And I'm wrong?
What? God's on the, but no, I have heard that in the case of apathy. Because you don't it's hard to say I don't have feelings towards stuff like what's happening in the world. And there's a lot of reasons I think for people to feel apathetic, and everyone deals with their own struggles and their own battles. But I know for I guess my experience, like I've experienced apathy in a place where like it's challenged me to be like, okay, what's going on in my heart where this is a real issue where people are being hurt, or like there's a major event happening, and I'm just like, okay, cool. Let's see what else is on. Yeah. Like I'm going to go ahead and keep scrolling. I know this is important and all, but I don't really want to invest myself in it in that moment.
Yeah. And it's hard because like there are some things that I think it's okay for us as human beings during certain seasons to not focus all of our attention on it. But the hard part is, I think this is what lends itself to this default apathy, is we've come to a place in our culture, or maybe it's just in this nation, I don't know, where we don't know how to have like multiple things we care about at different levels. It's like all or nothing. It's like if I can't be, I think about like all the social justice things that have come up and how like I even caught myself like recognizing, is this only important to me when it's that season? Yeah. Do Black lives only matter when
in February?
Right. Like, is that the time, or when someone is unjustly killed, or when there's something happening, in the news? Is that the only time we use that? Or are women's rights only important in March when it's Women's History Month? Are Native American and Indigenous people, are those lives only important? Are certain issues only important during those months? Because it feels like sometimes we only I either am all the way all my focus and attention is on this social cause and nothing else, or I can't even. I can't even. It's just too much. And like, honestly, like a mature mindset, or maybe a maturing mindset, would be like, okay, I can focus attention here for this amount of time. I can focus attention here for this. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
I feel like you're touching base on two different things. Like I think what we're trying to talk about is, one, the emotional response to situations, but then also the human ability to focus. Like I think those are two separate issues. I think one, so like if you look at the emotional response that sometimes elicits apathy from a person, it normally, I mean, not normally, but in my experience, I've seen it come out of, one, either you're just a jerk, like you just don't care about stuff, and there's something broken in your care area of your brain, in your feeler. Your
not
feelers
unredeemable.
Your feelers are broken and you're not able to connect. But if it's not that, a lot of times it comes from either overstimulation or depression or heartbreak. You know what I mean? Like there's something that either something
like a soft spot.
Yeah, there's either something major that has happened that is given us the ability to disconnect and disassociate from our feelings in a way as a mechanism to protect ourselves, or we're so overstimulated that we're at this, we're kind of in an emotional refractory period where it's like, I did care a whole lot about this. Like, honestly, I felt that during, like, what was it, 2019, 2020, like when all the killings and the protests and all this stuff.
It was exhausting.
It just seemed like every time I looked at my news feed or turned on the TV, it was another thing that was major, not just like a minor thing. And after a while, you can't, like a human being can't sustain that heightened level of outrage and survive. Like I think those high levels of stress hormones and all of that stuff, the adrenaline pumping through your body, like I think it will eventually just take you out. Like you're going to give yourself a heart attack.
Yeah, it wears you down.
And so you have to, I think biologically, there has to be something that gets put in place to kind of dampen the receptors so that you don't operate at that heightened level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, you're talking about like that threshold or tolerance of stress.
Yeah.
And I remember there was maybe an episode during that season where we talked about we were kind of going through the psychological trauma of seeing people that look like you being abused or being
murdered in
exploited.
effigy.
Yeah, murdered. And so we were talking about, well, what that does to a psyche is like it takes you to that place of survival where when you're already there and you're already angry or you're already stressed out, it doesn't take that much to set you over the edge. And so a lot of times people think like, oh my gosh, why? Like the response you may have to a certain topic to others may seem like, okay, you're getting a little bit passionate, a little bit heated, like calm down. When nobody can see under the surface that you've been carrying that weight.
Yeah.
And we see this in education. You see it in professional settings. Like you may have that coworker that's like, oh my gosh, like do not burn the popcorn. Tracy gets wicked mad over the like something, but for Tracy, maybe the smell of popcorn like triggers something in her.
Or you don't know what her home life is like.
Yeah, like
she could be going through some things.
Maybe it's just on the days that you burn popcorn that, her husband was yelling at her. I don't know. Like there are things we don't see under the surface. And I think with apathy, that can often be what's going on. It's like, I have spent so much energy caring about this thing. And you may hear it in the church. People say like, well, I used to mentor, I used to teach, I used to do this, but they got burned. They got burned or they felt burnout.
Yeah.
Which burnout is not always what we think it is. And so then they become apathetic or hardened, even maybe bitter towards the idea of extending themselves because they know what it feels like to be extended for an extended period of time.
Extend, and you can extend that.
And that extends into the extension.
To such extent.
To the extent that.
Well, and I feel like that season, like living in a season of apathy is natural, but extended apathy can lead to that calloused heart. It can lead to that that hardening of your heart to where you're no longer open. Like you're not ebbing and flowing. You've ebbed and you're not flowing anymore.
You've ebbed and extended.
You're like, I'm done. This is I will not extend myself anymore for anyone else.
Well, and there honestly in scripture you see that like Ecclesiastes has a lot of like observations about life.
Mm-hmm.
And even when he says, everything is hevel, like it's just meaningless.
Yeah.
We might interpret that as like, wow, he's being kind of apathetic about life and like negative Nancy over here.
I want you to say that to Solomon when you see him in heaven.
Solomon, you were such a negative Nancy. What was the deal? Like, what happened in your
Cheer
life?
up,
You
buckaroo.
were like living it up, and all of a sudden, cheer up, buckaroo.
Come on, pal.
But seriously,
Lighten
looking
up.
at what he saw and all the things he experienced. I mean, Solomon, this was a child of David. Think about all the things David went through and put other people through. And Solomon's just experiencing that in the context of his family, and then growing up, becoming the wisest king, and he was good looking and all that stuff, but yet he even says like, oh my goodness, like I've built wealth and I have done this and that and the other, and let me tell you what, it does not amount to anything.
No pleasure
apart
from God and apart from finding purpose in that. And I think that like staying on the track of the emotional response.
Yes.
I think the overwhelm, the overstimulation, it can also be like being so focused on one thing, so focused on the like something that you do care about, or that like you're finding joy in, because it's not always a passion. Sometimes it's just distraction, but it's something that gives you a joy, a sense of completion, a sense of some people. I remember reading when we had Isaiah that a lot of men, first time fathers, start homebrewing beer, like it's a thing, but as I was reading the article, it was because there's a sense of completion in it. There's a sense of like, I get to participate, I get to start and finish something, or they take up woodworking, or they take up remodeling the house. But we can get so focused on those little side tasks, or hyperfixated on these things that bring really distraction, but also simple joys that we are numb to everything else. We're like, I don't care about anything else right now. I just want to focus on this one thing. I just got to do my Sudoku. I just got to, for me right now, my
What'd you call it?
Sudoku. What'd I say? Sudoku.
I got to do my
Sudoku. That's how you know you're getting old, when you mispronounce stuff on purpose and then don't even care. I'm doing my
Sudoku puzzle?
What is it called? Sadaka? I don't care. I'm calling it Sadaka. That's what it is to me. You know what I'm saying? It's a Sadaka. But like, you focus on that thing, and that is the point of your day. And you seem apathetic to everything else, but it's because you need to find something that you can have feel a completeness in, or feel like I've started and finished something.
Yeah,
and so
that's a good point. Well, and
gotta bring that up.
Yes, and going back to, I like that you brought that up and you brought it to completion.
Cheers.
You didn't overextend it. It was nice. It was good. Well done. I think that overstimulation thing that you touched on is really important, because there are so many things, and when you start, it doesn't matter if you have a family, like you have children, like small children. It doesn't matter if you are a single person doing your own thing, you have your own business. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at in life, what season you're in. The ability to be overstimulated exists. We have so many, it's not technology's fault. It's just, there's so many opportunities for us to tune out, or to numb ourselves with something, or at the same time though, when we're being numbed with technology in front of us, something's being stimulated. And I think there was a comedian, Jaron Myers, had said something on social media that I happened to see on my newsfeed while I was mindlessly scrolling. He said, I don't think that the human brain was meant to comprehend that there are like billions of people in the world. Like, if you think about it, all of our human minds weren't meant to like fathom all of these people, let alone to know their opinion about everything.
At all times.
And that really hit me. I was like, whoa, like even me reading what you're saying is like hitting the nail on that. It's like, oh my gosh, like I'm not meant to know the opinion of people across the world on my situation. That's not that. I don't think that my mind was meant to like take all of that, and my heart was meant to carry all of that. And that brokenness from one person's comment across the globe or across the town shouldn't have weight on me. But yet in the world we live in, it's like, oh my gosh, can you believe this person said this and they said this? And it's like all of these things are stimulating different emotions in us, and stirring up these different thoughts and images, to where no wonder we're all operating at that level, where it just takes one thing, one little comment, one little don't look at me funny, because I've already been so overstimulated in my mind from all of these things. And that can also cause apathy. Like there's just so much. And I heard friends saying things like this again, back in, right when COVID, all the COVID stuff started happening. The opinion about masks or no masks. Do we shut down? Do we stay open? And then when vaccines came out, do we vaccinate? Do we not? All of these calls to action. And even right now, vote. You got to vote. You got to vote this way. You got to vote that way. And all of it's stimulating. It's overstimulating to where, for me, sometimes I will shut down. That's my go-to. It's just
your defense mechanism.
I cannot move. I am paralyzed.
It's it reminds me of that scene in the movie Home when he calls it the big brain boobs, and the one's like, what if we just pretend that we're all dead?
That's honestly,
and the person just lays there the whole rest of the show. Yeah, no, I feel that a lot in my spirit. I feel the necessity to distance myself from overstimulation and from feeling like all of these opinions and honestly, and in the same vein though, you'll get so numb to all of these thoughts that it takes a real wild statement, and then all of a sudden everything's re-inflamed.
Yes.
And you're I'm so passionate about this thing, and you're you didn't care 2 seconds ago, but it's because it's this crazy ebb and flow we have, dealing with social media, dealing with all the media, even if it's not social media, but just all the media being pumped into our faces in order to get ratings and get money and all this stuff. So yeah, there is that emotional necessity to apathy. Apathy is a tool that I believe our brains and bodies buy into in order to protect ourselves from overextension and from burnout.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about the human ability to focus, peace.
Yeah, yeah.
But before we do that, if you know of anybody that needs to hear this, somebody that doesn't know about the NixMyth podcast, then it's your responsibility.
It's your fault that they don't know.
It
about
really
it
is. If you know someone, they
you
don't
are
know
to
about
blame.
us,
it is your fault.
I blame you. That's what I'm just blaming you right now. It's fine. But you can redeem that. Just let them know about.
Just do the
us.
right thing. That's really all we're asking. Just do the right thing. Share it.
It's otherwise we'll be disappointed. And I don't want to have this talk again. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't want to have this again.
We don't want to have that.
But okay, so there's a book called I don't remember. I think it's called Switch. Yes, it is. Okay. It's called Switch. In the book, they take this idea of elephant and a rider, and it's a well-known psychological concept about how people.
A book.
Is there a book called Elephant and the Rider?
I
think you're right.
Book. Yeah.
So in one book, they're talking about another book, but they're talking about how people change and talk about how there's some your emotions are like the elephant, and that it's trudging, and a lot of times they work without you even thinking about them. They just do things. And the rider, the person trying to steer the elephant, is your intellect, and it's your ability to choose. And a lot of times, in order to change habits or to change emotional patterns, it takes a lot of effort from the rider at first in order to shift. In order to shift the elephant off of one path and onto another, because not only is it the elephant just marching in that direction, but because they're marching in the same direction, there's kind of like a rut. And so you have to kind of climb out of the rut, and it's a lot of work that it takes to change as a person, honestly. Yeah. But because of that, because it takes so much energy and focus to accomplish something as simple as changing your mind in one direction, or to mentally process large events, focus is a commodity that is easily expended in our human being. We don't have unlimited focus. We don't have unlimited attention. And what happens is, at the end of a long day, and I'm sure everyone listening or watching this has felt this, at the end of a long day, somebody asks you something as simple as, what do you want to watch? Or what do you want to eat? Or what do you want to...
I don't care.
Just pick something. I don't care. And it's not that apathy comes out and the other person, why don't you, what's wrong with you? You don't care?
You really don't care what we watch?
And it's no, but it's not that I don't, I don't care, because I've spent all day caring, and I've run out of care.
Yeah, that's decision fatigue.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly. And our human ability, you can't care all the time. You just can't. It's not physically possible.
And you can't care about all the things all the time. I think that's you should be a caring person. There should be
Yes,
within,
sorry.
Yeah, I was like, you should.
You should be
Hold
caring.
on, Pastor. Don't
Listen,
worry.
there are times I don't care about
Sometimes
nobody. No,
you
I'm
can't
just
get it
kidding.
right all the time, folks. No, but like I hear
I
you.
misspoke, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean.
Yes, and caring, like we have to be taught how to care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we inadvertently, and we've talked about this before with our young children and the type of work that we do, how are we teaching them the proper way to care for themselves, for other people? What are we showing them by the way that we care for our bodies and our mental health and our spiritual health? How are we showing them they should care about themselves?
Yeah.
And there have been times we felt convicted because they'll do something or they'll avoid doing something. And I'm like, oh, shoot, you know what? I think I've shown you how to do that. I think I have modeled that for you. And so we've had to get that elephant out of the rut and say, okay, guys, huge shift. We've been doing it this way, but we really should have been doing it this way. And this is what we're going to focus on. So caring is like, it's huge.
Yeah.
And like when we care about the wrong thing for too much, or we care about it in a way that's unhealthy and we're diverting all of our energy towards that, that's a type of burnout. When we start like completely throwing in all the eggs in one basket, and and I know personally I have felt that. I thought burnout was just doing too much for too long, which it's a type of burnout. You can, overextend yourself. Keep using that word.
That's the theme apparently
of
this episode.
But you can get yourself into a place where you're fatigued, you are emotionally, physically, mentally, you just don't have anything left.
Yeah.
It's a type of burnout. But I think maybe what we experience more often as people that we don't put a word to is you've been caring about this. Like that's not the thing you should have been caring about. Like you've been focusing so much energy on this outcome when this outcome was way easier. And that's why you feel burnout. Because you have been putting so much of your energy into the wrong thing.
Yeah, there's a video I saw by T-Pain, who's surprisingly motivational. Like if you don't know T-Pain on his social media, he's got some wild stuff on there, but every now and again he'll put a video out. I'm like, dang, that was good. That was a solid gem. But he tells a story about how he practiced all summer to get a solo or to get first chair when he played snare drum. and he goes and he practices all summer and he nails this page that he practiced, and then it turns out he practiced the wrong page.
Yeah, and the conductor was like, oh wow, you did so great. But that's not what I asked you to prepare.
Exactly. And so what you're talking about, I think that type of burnout is focusing, like we're focusing on the things that really distracts us from what's important. And we add import to things that don't deserve it. And so even looking at things as simple as other people's opinions of us online, at our jobs, at school, whatever that place is where you have put value, and yet have ignored the input of people that truly care about you and love you, who are in your inner circle, who are in the area that matters.
Yeah.
Like trying to outperform for image can cause burnout when really we're meant to be known and to know others intimately and to love people in a way that like brings us into their lives and brings them into ours. Yeah. And so, I think that's so true in our globalized world. Like in the way that sounded stupid, but you know what I mean? Like
the world is global.
But I mean, like we know people around the world. Like we know people in other countries. And not only do we know them, but we can speak to them at almost any moment. And having that world view of the entire globe is watching me, and I have to perform or I have to put out the best image. Can burn us out because we're not meant to perform for that many people. Yeah. And we're meant to only really care about those in our circle.
That you have influence over.
Exactly. Even Jesus, he had 12 that were his folks, but he had 3 that were like his folks. Like that's his inner circle.
And he had even more that followed him.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But even Jesus exercised and modeled for us how to care about the right stuff.
Yes.
How to like, okay, yeah, you're asking me for this. I'm doing this right now. Like this is what I'm doing. Martha, like, you care about all these things, but this one over here knows what's important.
That's right.
And so like, as much as we can kind of put ourselves out there like, okay, well, if I care about these things, then people will know that I care about them. They'll know me more. And then, we'll have this like intimacy in this relationship when really it's the opposite. No,
Yeah.
they need to know you. You need to know them.
That's right.
You need to, like, the situation of whatever's happening, you need to know more in order to care correctly.
Yeah.
And I think we try so hard to just be the caring one. Like, I'm going to care so much. And I know for me personally, this last season, I got myself into that place of like, I've got to care about all of this stuff. This is so important. I got to care about it all the time. And when I'm in my office, this is what I have to care about. And then all the things that really actually mattered to me suffered. And the relationships that mattered to me suffered. And my self-care suffered because I was like, I was burnt out. And what was my response at the end of it? I don't even care. You know what? I don't even care. Oh, babe, are we going to? I don't even care.
Don't care.
I don't care. Don't ask me. I don't care.
I don't want to make another decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't ask, don't care. And so like, I think that for me personally, it's still a very like fresh feeling. And it's a very fresh lesson of like, okay, wait, before you get yourself in that physical space. And for me, it's the workspace. Before you get yourself in that space, what actually matters? What really matters? The outcome of this situation, does it really matter? And also a huge part of it for me is, do I actually have the resources to obtain the change in this situation? Like, am I the fixer?
Am I the drama?
Am I the problem? Am I the one that's going to fix this? Most of the time, the answer to that is no.
Yeah.
And once I know that, like, I can care until the cows come home, I'm not going to change the situation for this person. I'm not going to change how they feel. I'm not going to change whether or not they believe they can do it.
Yeah.
All I can do is know them and love them. Like, while I know them, I love them, and I'm going to care like about you as a person, but I can't be your savior.
Yeah, you can't carry the care.
Yeah. And I think like our need for a savior, ultimately, I believe we all have that desire of like, who's going to rescue? Who's going to be the one to come in and save this? Someone has to save them. Someone has to feed the dolphins, and someone has to feed the children. Like, all these things, we know that we need a savior. We recognize the lack of salvation in certain situations. But we try to be the Jesus. We try to like actually be the one that's going to fix it, which can also lead us to that burnout of like, realizing I couldn't do it. And so instead of trying to insert ourselves as the savior, we're meant to point people to who he is.
That's good. I think that's good. I think that's a good place to land. I think, oh wait, no, that's crashing.
Crash and burn.
Crash and
burn out.
So this next series that we're going to start, just kind of as a preface, we're going deeper into focus and distraction, and we're going to give you some practical application bits on how to not be so distracted, on how to focus better, on what things we should be focused on, especially from a biblical standpoint. So if you want to know more about that, subscribe, share, do something to interact with this post or this podcast so that you can hear more, so that pops up on your feed.
Right. Well, this has been the NixMyth Podcast. We hope that this episode has connected you
to living truth. Be blessed.